Welcome back. I know we still have some people coming in and a few people coming in and out, but we have one very exciting panel left for you this afternoon. I just want to give you some quick notes on what to expect. I'm going to do it now because after the panel is very difficult. I know everyone's running around, so I want to make sure you hear this now. We're going to have one last panel, and then we're going to have some closing remarks briefly at the end, and then we should wrap up here by about before 5 o'clock. And then there's going to be a cocktail reception down the hall, back in room 207, down the corridor, and that is where we're going to have the raffle. You can find out if you won a prize. That's also where there's going to be the open bar. So there's going to be free drinks, or included drinks, I guess I should say, included in what you paid. Nothing's free, right? Nothing's ever free. And so all of that's going to happen right after. But first, it is time for our last panel for today. So I hope you're excited. This one's going to be good. Millennial perspectives on identity, intersectionality, and convergence. We have an amazing lineup. This group of incredibly diverse young professionals will help us understand how this new and next generation will be joining the workforce and redefining diversity, and what that means to businesses vying to attract the best talent and serve this emerging consumer group. So I know this is a topic that's come up several times today, this millennial perspective. Carla was talking about it earlier. I want to introduce to the stage, please welcome the panel's moderator, Ace Watanasuparp. I practiced saying his name. I just had the opportunity to meet Ace. He is a VP of Residential Lending Citizens Bank and co-owner of Spot Dessert Bar. They have several locations in the city. If you want to check it out, he's been interviewed with Gary Vee, Mark Cuban, and even with Mike Tyson. So welcome, Ace, and he is going to introduce his panelists.
Thank you, Sapna. How's everyone doing today? Good? Had a good, long, informative day? All right. So I'm actually excited to invite the panelists over. Through this experience, I've been able to learn so much about them and their diverse backgrounds. I'm really excited to call them up. First person that I wanted to call up is Noel. He's actually the founder and CEO of Joyau. I'd like for you guys to guess what kind of company that is. But he actually owned his own jewelry company, now transitioned over to a fine wine and champagne company, and also does a lot of F&B work as well. And he's also, I can't really disclose it because I just spoke to his brand manager, but he's actually going to be on a major network, just talking about the uber wealthy. So, Noel, welcome. The next person that I wanted to invite up is actually Gary Johnson, who's actually working on the current mayor administration for New York City. So welcome on board, Gary. Come on down. The next person is actually Xiao Tang. She's actually working for One to World. She works with a lot of international students. So I'd like her perspective on, what they're looking for in terms of companies here in the US. So come on board, Xiao Tang. And last but not least, Reham Fagiri. She was actually an electrical engineer, turned UPenn grad, and now is the CEO and founder of AptDeco. So welcome to the stage, Reham. So guys, talking about millennial, I know a lot of the millennials don't like using that word, but as a young professional breaking in, and really, as I look at your history and your background, all of you guys have followed your inspirations, right? Your dreams. So Reham, I'd like to start with you. So you started in school as an electrical engineer. You worked at Morgan Stanley. Then you went to grad school at UPenn. What happened between electrical engineer and now owning your own Art Deco company, selling furniture?
Sure. So I worked at Goldman Sachs, but it's the same thing.
Sorry about that.
The financial industry, it's all the same. But I did work with the Morgan Stanley folks recently. It was with my company. My history is that I was an engineer, worked in tech at Goldman for 6 years. Towards the end of my time there, I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So business school was a good way for me to explore. I thought maybe I wanted to leave tech completely and do something different. This was in 2010. So I ended up leaving Goldman, went to Penn. It was a great experience there. One of the things that was really refreshing was just seeing all the diversity from people from all over the world, coming from different backgrounds, different also educational backgrounds. That's the great thing about business school. And really just opened my mind up to a lot of different opportunities. So I toyed with a lot of different ideas. As I think like a lot of millennials didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And so ended up wanting to go into startups and actually had a job lined up here in New York City at a tech startup. But during my last couple of months in business school, I was trying to sell my furniture to move back to New York for my new job. But the experience was really bad on Craigslist, if any of you have heard of it. And so I was inspired to do something about it. So I ended up starting the company, which is essentially solving the problem for Craigslist, helping people buy and sell furniture, and we are vertically integrated, so we have our own logistics services as well. And that's how I got here.
And how long have you been in business for yourself for?
It's 4 years.
That's amazing. All right, Noel, the man to my left.
What's up?
So your journey has been quite the journey. Can you tell everyone in the audience, what made you have such a entrepreneur spirit at such a young age, and you've accomplished so much at your current stage in your career? What's been an attribute to that?
I don't know. It sounds very generic, but I really was at the right place at the right time. I first started out in the luxury jewelry industry, watches, high-end bespoke jewelry for clients in China. And my shift into wine was actually an accident because I actually partnered with this huge jewelry company. We went to a private gathering, private showing, went in, it was at a vineyard. And once I walked in, they poured me a glass of white. The vineyard owner came up. And he's like, how is the wine? Good evening, how's the wine? I'm like, oh yeah, it's good. Like, so at the time I didn't drink wine. I only drank, Scotch whiskey. And so he's like, okay, this is, one of our reserves, and we've done this and we've done that. So what do you really think of it? It's good. Like, I had no idea, how to really spin this, right? Flavors, notes, fruits, aromatics, whatever might have you, right? Mm-hmm. And literally, I forgot, I also had a date.
Okay.
So I'm like, if there was a hole, I would dig myself into it. And I was like, you know what? After this, I had to rectify this weakness and signed up for sommelier school, at ICC, which used to be the French culinary. And then I thought that was it, but as it will, China consumes wine like no other. And I just delved deeper and deeper, had my own wine company, Champagne. Now I'm in F&B, hospitality. So that's kind of.
So you really took advantage of the opportunity in front of you.
Yeah.
Now, was it hard being an entrepreneur and starting your own company? Can you tell folks here, a lot of times, we're so afraid of being uncomfortable. So we have this 9 to 5. We're at a corporate jobs. We're making great money, but to follow our passion, I feel as if talk is cheap, right? We all say that we want to follow our hearts, but a lot of times with family, with responsibilities, you're not able to actually reach your dreams. What made you actually just say, you know what? I'm going to actually open up my own company. I'm going to start my own line.
I think I just wanted to be invited to all the parties.
It's always a great reason.
It is. I'm usually the party guy, right? The wine guy, champagne guy. No, I think mainly it really just involved, I guess, wanting to be kind of accepted, right? So one of the biggest advantages, which is a play on, I guess, what I said before, was that if you're in any party, any conference, any setting where there's a lot of people, one of the biggest problems is everyone has their own specialty, right? I'm a finance guy, I'm a real estate guy, I'm a this guy, and so there's not much interconnection between any of the fields. And so for me, being an entrepreneur, which I don't really like using that because it almost makes me sound like I have no job, like, I'm kind of like the great connector, right? So I can't be in any individual group. I can talk to the finance guys. I can talk to the real estate guys. I can talk to anyone I want to because I somehow, I mean, unless you don't drink alcohol, then I have no, no.
Definitely.
So that's kind of where I've inculcated myself into.
Got it. Okay. Now, Gary, shifting gears, how has it been working for Mayor de Blasio in his administration?
I just want to go to all the parties. That's what it's.
Everybody wants to go to all the parties.
No, that sounds awesome. I would much rather just hear you talk about that lifestyle. Now on the government side.
Government side.
So, sorry, your question was how did I get started?
How did you end up working for the government?
Yeah.
And how did you get started in your career?
Yeah, so I think, I grew up in New York. I grew up in East Harlem. And, I had parents of public servants. My dad was a bus driver for 15 years. My mom worked for the DOE. So it was kind of like in my DNA to think about service. In my immediate community, I had a lot of friends who, kind of fell through the loopholes, if you will, in like the public school system. And so I said all that to say I've always had this thing in me of like, how can I contribute and give back? And political science, undergrad, and fast forward, there were a number of programs I think were really formative for me. Coral Fellows program is a competitive fellowship in New York for individuals from across the nation apply to. They have a cohort of 12 that they accept here in New York. I applied, I got in, and that kind of really changed my life in a lot of ways. So I had these 11 other individuals who had so many accolades, and the focus was to figure out how do we dedicate our lives to public service and what that might look like. And so from there, I worked on the Bloomberg campaign on his third term, which was somewhat controversial, but with the focus on wanting to really serve in the public service capacity. And so I've spent the last 8 years and working for the city and for both administrations. Now in the de Blasio administration, I work for the Chief Technology Officer as a Director in Strategy Ops, and I get to lead a program called NYCX, which is thinking about breakthrough and emerging technology. So often New York City the cities are late to the game as it involves technology. So how can we be more proactive and lean in to make sure that technology is going to serve New Yorkers first?
That's great, Gary. Can you tell de Blasio a message from me? Can he
I'm going to
put some of that tax money into the potholes in New York City?
Word, yeah. I'm going to talk to the DOT commissioner about that specifically.
And Xiao Tang, I know you work with a lot of international students transferring here to the U.S. And for the major corporations in the U.S., what are some of the things that international students are seeking? Or I know you do a lot of networking events, things that will assimilate themselves here, just to get their learning curve a little bit quicker, to understand the customs. But what are they mainly looking for when looking at a corporation here, talking about diversification and just the sense of belonging?
Like the things they're looking for in the U.S.
Correct.
The company.
Yeah.
Well, I think no matter what's going on right now in the current administration, the things we still couldn't deny is U.S. and New York is still the center of the world economy. So when the international students looking for a job here, I believe is still looking for this great platform. They were able to work with top global talents and using the cutting edge technologies and have this global network. But international students have their own weakness. Actually, our strength is our weakness. Some big corporations looking for diversify their global talent, but some companies are thinking we have language barriers, so we have hard time to adapting the Western culture. So I think it's important for international students looking for a company have a visionary and with an open mind and thinking, pay attention to how much innovation and creativity international students can bring to them. And the last, I think, as one of the audience said, we're the minority of the minorities, and it's very important to have the big corporations still get invested enough for the work sponsorship, right?
So Xiaotang, in terms of working with a lot of companies here in the U.S., what company do you consider is sort of at the forefront in terms of attracting international students to their company? Like, what are they doing culturally, or even just programs to instill these international students and attract them?
Okay.
Any top companies that come into mind? J.P. Morgan and Chase. Just
Sure.
plug there.
Well, let me answer this question two separate ways.
Okay.
In terms of the programs, we have a lot of programs very popular among different employees. We have career workshops and we have different mentoring programs. But there are one program I would like to bring up is intercultural competence workshop. It's a workshop we prepare for them, shifting their cultural perspectives and helping them adapt their behaviors to the people have a different cultural background. And the way we're explaining people have a different cultural difference is I'm always use the metaphor as an iceberg. Thinking about everybody have a different skin of colors and your genders, you're using different language. That's all visible. That's the top of the surface. But the bigger portion lies under the surface, like an iceberg. It's our values and behaviors. So it's very important to reflecting on your cultural difference and aware there are other iceberg around you to avoid the two iceberg collisions, right? So the cultural difference definitely can enrich your workplace, but without individual and the collective appreciate the cultural difference, it's could causing some communication breakdowns and social misunderstandings, even cause less productivities. So it's very important for the company having those kind of intercultural competence workshops to improve employees understand their cultural perspectives. And the good news is your intercultural competence can be practiced and approved by using different methods of the inclusions and reflecting on your perspectives and especially pursuing the different opportunities to interact with people with different background. So those kind of workshops, I think, is not just important for the education field, but also in the corporations. And you're asking the leading companies. Well, JP Morgan definitely is one of them, and they were on the top of a diversity list. I actually had a very interesting conversation with lawyer manager from Ernst & Young a couple weeks ago. I heard they actually created this global talent programs. So they were filing the H-1B work visa for the international students. And if they didn't get approved by the current administration, which you can say is very hard, challenging right now, they have this global talent program to relocate those international students, help them find a job back to in their home country. So I really appreciate those big companies pay attention to develop those global talent. But also I want to bring up is if you do a quick research on the company who hire the most international students, you can easily find there are what kind of companies? IT supplies and accounting firms and financial companies. Those companies are so focused on the international students' hard skills. Is it because we don't have soft skills? No. I think it's very important for the big company bring up the opportunities and platform to help international students develop the soft skills and help them to grow for the leaderships.
Definitely. I think besides IT, besides, the sort of stereotypical career paths, we definitely have fashion, creativity, right? So,
Yeah.
But, this is a question for everyone here on the panel, which is you guys have all had your unique journeys and unique successes. But what are some of the barriers that you've faced and overcome throughout the years to get to where you are today? Each of you have a unique sort of roadmap. Can you guys just individually just talk about your barriers, your challenges, and how you overcame those challenges? Because a lot of times when people, especially when they say millennials, a lot of times millennials will say that, you know what, this is my inspiration, but they work on it for a day and they hit a roadblock and then they're on to the next venture, right? So what is it that made you stay committed, overcome those challenges, and then get to where you are today? So we'll start with you, Noel.
Hello? Hello? Yeah. I would say the biggest one would probably, everyone probably might agree on, is age, right? I mean, you're just naturally young. You can't do anything about it. Even if you're more mature for your age, I mean, someone is in the industry for 20 years, you've only been in it for 5. I mean, how much can maturity make up for it, right?
Definitely.
So I think the easiest way, I guess, to make up for that is to assemble a team who is experienced. So for every single venture I've ever been in, any partnerships I've ever been in, I've always made sure to partner with someone else who is way more knowledgeable than I am. And so that kind of compensates for my own weakness. So for wine, you know, I am a sommelier. However, I have Scott Carney, who's the 7th Master Somm in the United States, as one of my partners, right? And Master Somm is the highest level for a wine taster, wine expert. For other ventures where I'm investing in the hospitality group, I have VPs from big banks, you know, founders of various hedge funds, VC firms, who are all on my team, who can kind of help me to say, you know what, we've invested in these sorts of lounges, nightclubs, bars, and so now we're giving that experience to you to point you out to make sure that you're not falling into any potholes.
That's great. Gary.
Yeah, I think in terms of like obstacles, I think you know, I think just one of the things that I'm always thinking about is just sort of having the tenacity and like perseverance. I think you know, whenever I hit a roadblock, I'm always thinking, you know, what is the bigger picture? What am I trying to accomplish? A good book I read recently, Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I try to figure out what is the purpose for whatever I'm doing, and why am I doing it, how, then what. So that's been a framework I'm trying to perfect and improve. I think, you know, there are obvious experience that I've had specific to being a black male and my trajectory and experiencing government, et cetera, and sort of you know compartmentalizing that experience. You know, and I think it's just, you know, building a network of mentors and peers who, you know, come from all different ilks and sizes and ethnicities that can give you professional advice, and as well as help you, you know, figure out how to navigate. So there's a lot to unpack there, but, you know, I think there's a lot we can talk on throughout the panel.
Okay. Shatang, any challenges that you've experienced?
Well, I think I can speak up from the international student point of view. I'm an international student, actually. I came to United States for my grad school. So I only been working for US-based company for about 7 years. So I think the biggest barrier for everybody who working for the new country is the culture difference, right? The culture shock. Everybody experiencing a different way. Some people probably feel very frustrated for nothing, and it's like a psychological response. And I remember when I first coming here, I was very excited and finally got away from my parents.
Getting away from your parents.
Well,
that's always a good reason.
But the culture shock did hit me later. So my point is, everybody do experiencing a different way and a different time of a period. So it's important to let international students know it's a part of the process, a part of the adjusting process. And I'm also appreciate all those opportunities because all those challenges, even something basic, right? The language, the food, the different social behaviors, it's all about the cultural difference. And it's once you overcome those challenges and the self-doubt and the fears, at the same time, it's also boosting your confidence. And I do believe whatever you do, it's all about the confidence, and those confidence is an essential part for your career development.
Definitely. Reham.
Sure. So, a couple of things. So I totally, you know, sort of appreciate the cultural part. So I think the first one as an entrepreneur was trying to convince my parents why I would leave a very good job to essentially become broke and start a company. And I'm still working on that. You know, it's work in progress. So, but the challenge there is just, I think, as like a stereotypical millennial, I wanted to find myself and do something that I'm really passionate about. And so, you know, really just staying the lane and being focused. that's the first thing. And then from a career perspective, as I started building the company and actually just getting the like people to actually respect me as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as an engineer, as a woman engineer, as a black woman engineer. There's a lot of layers there that I've continued to have to face and deal with. But you know, one of the things that we always talk about in our company is, in my company is, you know, we can only focus on the things that we can control. So all these external factors, they're just distractions. So what I do is just, our numbers need to be as good as they can be. So this is not going to be a question mark. We're building a business that people actually like, New Yorkers love, and all those other things are just distractions.
Good, good. So I actually had a question from the audience. So Noel and Reham, what are your thoughts on the new majority initiative, and does it connect with how you see America today? You want to go first, Noel?
What was it?
So the question was, I know this is a little bit of a curveball here. So we have a question from the audience. What are your thoughts on the new majority initiative, and does it connect with how you see America today?
I honestly don't know what the
can
new
you clarify
majority
what that
is.
So, I'll get back to that because that's actually part of the questions on the Q&A. What I wanted to talk to you guys about is with technology today, and a lot of people, you know, hearing about social media, where there's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. Before, to tap into a marketplace, you had to really be in the network. Today, you have millions of folks getting 2 million, 3 million hits, 3 million views, and really becoming an expert in their industry. How do you think technology has played a role in your business? And if someone in this room is not on social media today or utilizing that platform, what would you tell them today in terms of business and how that makes you know, a difference in their business capture or, you know, audience conversion? Noel?
I mean, I'm really not the best person to ask anything about technology. I'm the worst with it. And you might think that's an exaggeration, but just the other day, one of my friends laughed at me because he's like, "Oh, where are you going?" I was like, "I'm going to the post office. I'm going to send out this letter." And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to send out this letter." He's like, "You probably buy your stamps from the post office too, right?" I'm like, "I do. I stand online and I buy my stamps." and then, you know, I use actual envelopes. I was like, "Yeah," I lick the envelope, press it down. And he's like, "What are you, 80? Like, what are you still?" They have UPS. They can come to your house, so you know they'll pick it up. So
How many people still buy stamps here at the post office? Raise your hands. Wow.
nice,
That is amazing. See?
nice.
No, you're not by yourself here.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay.
I'm in the wrong group. But usually my marketing standpoint is everything for me is almost word of mouth. I have a wide network of people from, you know, all groups, and so once I send it out there, I mean, I'm pretty sure something will bite.
What about you, Gary? What do you think?
About using envelopes or stamps?
About going to the post office? No. But just utilizing social media technology as a platform. I know you're working on a technology initiative.
I mean, we can talk about social media and technology overall, but I think the impacts are pretty obvious, right? If you look at how Facebook and YouTube in our, you know, political process, you know, it's alleged that it's been used in ways to control popular opinion, right? So the impact is massive. I think we're in a space where we're learning exactly how to manage that, right? But for me personally, and from what I've seen from entrepreneurs that I know, you can literally create a career out of it, right? Like you can start a YouTube channel. Issa Rae is a great example. She has a show on, I think it's on HBO or Showtime, called Insecure. She started as a web series, and now, you know, she partnered with Pharrell, and then now she's a star, right? And so it's a way. What I think that the internet provides is a bridge to connect to folks who ordinarily wouldn't have a seat at the table, right? So it kind of democratizes that, which I think is a brilliant opportunity. But the challenge is that, you know, we still live in a city where, 2.5 million people don't have access to affordable internet. So that needs to be addressed.
Xiaotang?
Well, I agree with Gary. The technology, the social media definitely changed the way you earn and retain the consumers, especially for the young consumers and all those in-app buttons, right? Likes, shares, buy now, direct now, all those helps you build a closer relationship with your customers and your clients. But I want to use an example. My current work, when we're organizing all those social events for the international students and the Fulbright grantees. For general international students, they are younger, they are college students. When we send out the event invitations, we use social media, especially Facebook ads, the Instagram, also Instagram stories. But for the Fulbright grantees who are older, most are around 30 to 40, around that age, we're still using the traditional old-fashioned direct mail or email merge. So my point is, I think even we have a lot social media and a new technology right now, I think it's important to find a right mix of the technology works for your company. It's not necessarily you suddenly giving up what works for you before, but it's more about strategically thinking what is a good function to add in. Yeah.
Definitely.
I think, I totally agree with what everyone's saying. I think just from the flip side, from the business side, a small business, social media is great, but also because there's just so much chatter out there, you have to have very high budgets to actually be visible. So if you rely only on digital advertising, social media, it can become very costly. And I think we've seen that with a lot of businesses. Like Facebook is very expensive, depending on your business. Some businesses it's fine, some businesses expensive, but it can definitely be great for the business. So we're a tech company, so without technology we wouldn't even exist. My business would not exist at all. So obviously technology is very important for us. I think you have to tread carefully.
Yeah, no, an example for myself, we're actually looking to franchise Spot. We currently have 4 locations in Manhattan now, and we're looking to launch at least 50 stores in the next 3 months. And I was speaking with a Chinese investor, and they were asking me if I was on WeChat. And I'm like, no, I don't have WeChat. And they're like, you don't have WeChat? They looked at me as if I was on Mars. And I'm like, I have Line and all these other apps, but, I guess it's just part of our culture and part of our business today that I think people really need to consider. To your point, Reham, we're not changing our business model, but we're using technology to enhance, right? And I think that's something that I've learned throughout the years in terms of the successful companies. They're actually shifting over to not only social media, but different technology platforms. Reham.
The one thing I would add to that is I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago there was this big, there's a bunch of companies that really took advantage of the new social media. So Twitter and Facebook, all of them sort of were on the newer side, and it was great to ride that wave. But now when you look at the trends, there are actually a lot of businesses are going back to traditional media for advertising too. So you're doing subway advertising, which we do. You're doing actual flyers plus social media.
Definitely.
But you can't rely on just one channel to attract your customers.
So, tell us the importance of mentorship, right? So we have, companies out here that are looking to attract millennials, and a lot of you guys had a consistent messaging in terms of there was that aha moment where there was someone in your life that actually sort of, was somewhat of a role model that you guys looked up to. Did you guys each have a role model, and is that mentorship so important with companies or even with different teams within organizations to have? Noel.
I think for all the things that I did, one, I work for myself, so it's really not that easy to find someone in every single field that I'm really involved in. So more of a trailblazer, but what I had to do was essentially fit mentors into what I was actually doing instead of actually just finding one, because obviously it's not one size fits all, right? So when I started the wine company, I was like, you know what, who can I find oh, maybe my wine teacher from back in the day. So called him up, brought him aboard for investing in, in the hospitality group. I mean, there's no mentor. I didn't know anyone in that sort of field. So I found finance guys who knew friends who were in that. So like they kind of became the mentors to ease my way in.
What about yourself, Gary? Anyone that you looked up to?
I think I've had tons of mentors, and I say that because I try to collect something from everyone I meet. So even if we're peers or you're someone looking for me for advice, I think there's an opportunity to like share. So I'm really intentional about that. But there have been tons of. I'm always looking for folks who are like obviously a lot older than me who have done a variety of things. But I think the point I wanted to make is constantly rethinking who's on my my council of advisors. What part of the perspective am I missing? Is everyone just thinking like me? Who's pushing me? So it's something I'm always thinking about, and would love to connect with folks in this room if you're looking to be on my advisory council, I guess.
Xiaotang?
Yeah, for sure. Special for international students and as a millennial and also as a minorities. When you come to the new country, when you enter this Western culture, you probably feel so lost, right? You don't know. You probably alienated from your home country and also couldn't build a connection with this new culture. It's extremely important to have the mentor or sponsor to guide you through. And also, we're so young and we're still trying to figuring out who am I, what am I thinking, and how do I think, what our character is. It's just easier and more efficient if you have a mentor to guide you through, to help you to take advantage of your diversity background and integrate together with the Western culture. That's very important. And I'm very appreciate John. Actually, when I come into U.S. work, and John is the one sponsor my work visa. And not even mention about small nonprofit organization, now big corporation actually committed to do so. Yeah.
Reham?
I've never had like a formal mentor in my sort of career, but over time, there's definitely been a lot of people who've been my advocates and sort of, I guess, quote unquote sponsors who've helped. One I've, sort of looked up to, people that I wanted to, have in my network or, sort of mimic to some extent what, their career path. And at the same time, they've also helped me progress in my career, whether it's when I was at Goldman or when now starting this company and getting it to this point.
Yeah, and I just would quickly emphasize something that Reham said is there's a difference between having a mentor and a sponsor, right? The sponsor is a person that is in your workplace, is a senior to you that is mentoring you, but also giving you air cover, right? And I think there's a lot of research that shows that women and people of color, they're more likely to succeed in an organization if they have a sponsor. So that more than mentorship, I think sponsorship and looking for individuals as sponsors is I think to sponsor you is key.
I think something that I take from my experience, a little bit tidbit about myself is that I was actually a walk-on at UConn. And the reason why I bring that up is, for someone of my stature, I'm definitely 6'5", but at the time in school, I actually asked one of the field house managers, I'd like to walk on to the team. He actually told me that the tryout was actually at the Armory building. In reality, the tryout was actually at Gamble Pavilion. And I never made it to tryouts that day. I actually went to another building. And, I was heartbroken. And I actually went up to Nigel, who we're very good friends till today. And I asked him, why did you tell me that the tryouts was in the Army building? And he said, Ace, you're Asian, you're 5'9". Do you really think you're going to make the team? And, from that experience, it's sort of shaped who I am today. And the reason why I say that is once I made it onto the team, I actually put something on right by my bedside, and I just told myself that I will persevere and I will prove people wrong. So what I did was I moved to Connecticut, stayed there for the summer, and actually trained with the team, worked at a part-time job at the time to actually pay for housing for the summer, But what I learned from Coach Calhoun, which was everybody on the team came from all different walks of life. We had recruits from Australia to Africa to Europe, and we all came with one purpose. And I think when we look at companies today, and whether you're a millennial or you're just young at heart, or you're in your careers, which I think the new 30 is the new 40, right? So in our industry, people are getting younger and younger in terms of frame of mind. You could be 50, you could be 60, but it really depends on your energy. And I think for companies, you have to have diversification. And I like the fact that we're talking about diversity and inclusion today, because it's so important for the success of every company, where you're actually touching upon, and we all know that the new local is international. So we're all looking at our businesses, it's commerce, it's technology. And what I learned about all of these panelists, by doing this actually sort of homework on them, is that each of them, regardless of where they're from or their upbringing, they all actually had a sense of confidence. And I think that doesn't come from just themselves, but it comes from their surroundings and their environment. And I think in the corporate world, or even in the business world, that type of confidence needs to be instilled in the minority, or not even minorities, but in terms of a diversified field. And I just want to make sure that all of us that actually represent a company today, these are the futures of the industry, but they do need mentorship. And I think when I look at and when I try to bridge, my business in the banking world as a regional manager, there's benefits to both sides. For someone that's been in the business for a long time, they can actually learn from the millennials in terms of their technology approach, social media, little things, even my assistant, I feel like I'm old, right? And my assistant, she's 24, and she's telling me all these things on Google Sheets, automation, and I just don't even understand what she's doing, right? So she's the type that will actually, I'll tell her, can you create a spreadsheet of all the top agents in New York City so that we can do an automation, let's say email campaign blast. And she'll spend probably an hour trying to sort through and create a program to get that done, rather than doing the exercise herself, right? So there's a lot of just different approaches, and I think you can learn a lot from millennials, and millennials can learn a lot from mentorship. So, if there's anything that you guys want to take away, is that there's so much that everybody on this panel can bring to the business, but also the companies themselves have to give these guys support and the confidence, right? So with that being said, what does the next 5 years look for each of you guys? What are you guys trying to do with your careers, and what's that next level for you? Noel, Mr. Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
For my wine, obviously introduce it into China. Right now we're talking with the top 10 jersey sale basketball players in China to talk about being the brand ambassador for hospitality. I'm investing in quite a few endeavors that are almost similar to the Soho House, so that we're trying to take global. And then I guess
so that's more like lifestyle in terms of just being part of a membership at the Soho
No,
House.
building out the entire club.
Wow.
Such as the Soho House, and then expanding it globally to China, Thailand. It's already actually in London. So, and then for jewelry, I've actually taken a back pedal on it, because I don't know, the potential for growth in the jewelry industry is actually just diminishing. No matter if you say, oh, couples are buying more diamonds, they're getting engaged, whatnot. So there was an actual famous actor in China. His daughter came to U.S. to actually talk to me about getting into the jewelry industry. First thing I told her, I said, don't. Go find something else to do.
Okay.
And for her, she's like, well, why? I'm like, if you're trying to make a lot of money, or you're trying to make it in this field, it's already too congested. I mean, everyone and anyone is well knowledgeable on what they want to do, what they want to buy. So there's no room for you to really take advantage.
What about yourself, Gary?
So I want to party with Noel is in 5 years.
Okay, that's checked.
And Thailand.
We all need to party with Noel.
All of us. So that's a major milestone. No, I mean, just want to have impact, right? I want to, obviously be able to do good work and do well for myself. And as of late, that's looked like how can I help drive capital and investments into more women and businesses of color, right? And specifically in tech. So, maybe that's coming from the venture capital space, and maybe that's on the government side, figuring out how to pool and convene resources. But what the data says, less than 6% is going to women and people of colors in the capital world. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And so I think that's where I'm at.
That's great. Xiaotang, next 5 years.
Yeah. Should I say party with Noel too?
Yes.
Well,
I'll give everyone my WeChat later.
Well, I think, myself, as international students, as a woman, as an Asian, it can go deeper, and I'm really a lot of times I can have that loneliness feeling when I was looking for my career path and I was looking for a job. I know how challenging and the struggles international students were going through. So I think for me, in the next 5 years, I was glad you bring up the mentorship. I think a lot of people, it doesn't have to be very senior or in a high level or board members to become the mentor. Everybody here, you can become the mentor. Somebody needs your help, and something you do, maybe just the fact I'm sitting here already inspires some international students to moving forward, have a more positive mindset. So I think for me, next 5 years, finding more chance to giving back to the community and also helping more international students and minorities and with my limited knowledge and helping them. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. Last but not least, Reham.
So for us, AptDeco hopefully should be everywhere. That's the goal. That's the plan. We've been fortunate to, right now we're only in the tri-state area, and we have a long way to go to be everywhere. So the goal is to be like an Airbnb in the next 5 years. Also, in the process, what makes me very excited is also, we are employing a lot of underserved people here in the city that usually are not, they're not necessarily the first folks that people will hire, and we're building career paths for them and we're creating new jobs. So that to me is very exciting. And as we take this and scale it out, and really create this network where we are, one, helping the environment, two, creating jobs, and really scaling that is very exciting for us.
That's great, Reham. So we have about 14 minutes left. I kind of wanted to open it up for a Q&A. So if you guys have any questions for the panelists, yes.
Hello, I'm John Sauter from the conference board. From the last few panels, we talked about diversity inclusion, and it was kind of ironic where none of you really kind of talked about it directly. And it sort of makes me think that a lot of millennials are sort of resting on their laurels when it comes to that. They think naturally, since we have a sort of diverse upbringing and have a diverse slate of people up there, that it's just going to happen naturally. As you as business leaders and entrepreneurs, where do you think about that? Where's your place in that space?
It's very important. So our team, we have a very international team. So someone from Venezuela, someone from Iran, I'm from Sudan, someone from California and China, and so for us, it's most of our team and our founders or like the executive team are actually diverse by virtue. So it's in our DNA. And it's important, and the reason why we're a small company but we are growing really fast is this gives us the competitive edge. So for us, we think it's very important. We spend a lot of time trying to find folks that may be overlooked. That especially for a startup, like we're always trying to find affordable talent. So it's something that we focus on a lot.
I think, frankly, if you haven't considered how consider that diversity equals competitive advantage yet, then your company is not going to be built to last, I think. And I think, there's a lot of data points that are showing how, woman-led companies are starting to have a much higher return in the tech space. So I think those are things to consider. I mean, for me, I think it just has to be intentional on the leadership to diversify and that's not tokenism, like real inclusion. Like give the woman or the person of color an actual role where they have influence and watch what they do. I think it's as simple as that.
Noel, Shantae?
I don't know. I don't usually purposely try to, I guess, diversify for the sake of diversifying. I mean, I was in the military back in the day, and one of the biggest parts about that people, I guess, had opinions was that people got promotions because they were a certain race, color, or people got promotions because of a certain gender. I mean, for me, it's really about, I mean, if you can perform well, I mean, then I'll hire you. If you don't, then on to the next one.
Shantae?
Well, I think from the millennial perspective, and we tend to think less about singular nationality, right? If you guys agree with me, and we, most young people already travel a lot and study abroad, have those multicultural background. So I think in our genes, we already have this diversified background in ourselves. But when we're treating other people, I think it's very valuable to show appreciation and to appreciate other people's background and to recognize they can bring the different opinions and wild experience to your workplace.
So I'm going to comment on that as well, which I think, if you're a millennial in this day and age, it's a lot different than when I first graduated UConn, right? So when I first graduated, I went into investment banking. And right away, I dealt with private clientele where I had to actually go out and get big accounts. At that age, at 23, 24, people are not willing to talk to you at all. It was a rough market, right? Now, in today's day and age, I can tell you, I was actually one of the first Asian Americans to become an area manager at Wells Fargo. And at the time, I was maybe 27 at the time. And when I went to their meeting at Des Moines, Iowa, there was maybe 500 executives there. And I can tell you, when I looked into the crowd, there was maybe two African Americans, and I was the only Asian in the room. And I looked at my boss, and I'm like, man, there's like no Asians or any minorities here. I'm gonna have a hard time here. And he's like, no, Ace, you're locked in. This is a layup for you for the next 7 years because, you're different, right? You're not only young, but you're Asian and you're different. Now, when I look at that, for us in this day and age, I always want to go back to content. When you look at the young, I guess, individuals that have their own tech company that are making millions of dollars, like the Snapchat founder and all those guys, that's a 1 percentile. But in today's day and age, if you have content, the companies it's almost reverse discrimination. The younger you are, the more attractive you are in today's marketplace. The older you are, and I'm just sort of saying it how it is, right? So please, no pun intended here. I think the older you are, the more they think, oh, you're not up to speed with technology, but that's not true. I've seen so many people that are so successful, even if they're 40, 50, 60, if they're just able to adapt and utilize technology, that's not even old, right? So I definitely take that back. That's not old at all, right? But we're talking about these millennials that are 20 years old, 18 years old. So in comparison, but I'm actually really good friends with Gary Vaynerchuk. He's 46 years old. I met Mark Cuban. He's in his 50s, and these guys are so tech savvy, and they've pretty much embraced technology that they're ahead of the industry. And I just think, in today's day and age, if you utilize technology in the right way, you're definitely going to pretty much be successful in business. So there's no real discrimination as a millennial today.
The last thing I was gonna add is, I mean, I think we still, just generally as a society, we have a long way to go in terms of diversity and inclusion anyway. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's not just, it shouldn't just be driven by millennials, but, you know, companies have a long way to go. So when I was at Goldman, I was the youngest female, like engineer, manager at the firm. And, you know, like now I'm one of 15 Black female founders in the United States of America who've raised over $1 million, which is ridiculous. That's not something to be excited about. This just says how far we have to go as a society overall. So it's not just, it shouldn't just necessarily come from us as individuals, but I mean, everyone has to take this and take it seriously.
So so Jay-Z just did this interview with Van Jones, and he talked about the video he just put out called Family Feud with Ava DuVernay, who wrote, and she's phenomenal, 13th on Netflix, you should watch it. And sort of the vision of it was, imagine a world where there's no longer a first anything, first female, first Black. And so, I mean, I think that is something, you know, to aspire to, right? While we still have only 15 Black women who are being funded over $1 million, there's a challenge there, right? And so if we're thinking about diversity and inclusion, I think we have to imagine a world that we want to see and think of some actionable ways to get there. And it may be, you know, looking outside of your normal, you know, purview of people you would normally consider for positions.
I hear Oprah Winfrey might be our next president, hopefully. So
We could talk about that. We could talk about that, you know.
But any other questions? Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Moreland from MBDA. I just wanted to ask the panel, what do you think are the major sources of misunderstandings between millennials and baby boomers?
And silence.
Silence.
No. I think one of the biggest ones is there seems to be some sort of bias, almost like, you know, I'm a boomer and I think this way and this is how I've always done it. And then you're a millennial, you guys have never really worked as hard as we did. And millennials do the same thing while you're outdated. You know, staying in one company, look at me, I'm learning all these different things. I'm hopping around, I'm pursuing new goals and new aspirations. So I think in order, I guess, to resolve that, everyone has to appreciate the other, like where that other person is coming from. Right, that was the times. That's how it was done at that time, and you can't really disrespect it because I mean, I don't know what's the generation called after a Z? Well, Z, yeah, Generation Z is going to be like, look at the millennials, and they're just hopping all over the place, finding jobs, as they said, like every five careers in a lifetime. I mean, what are you really doing, right? And then we're going to do the same thing for them, whatever they're going to do, and so it's just I think it's an understanding and just respect that, you know. That was then and this is now.
I mean, I'd say, you know, I was raised by boomer generation, and I think it's just, you know, echoing what Noel said, just that I think our generation can be perceived as being sort of entitled and arrogant, and all these things should happen right now. We're in this now generation. But, you know, there's been many chapters before us, right? And so acknowledging that, right, you know, the historical context of what has been accomplished and what sacrifices have been made for us to have this platform, I think is key in that sort of generational sharing.
Yes.
Fran Dillard from Texas Instruments. First of all, congratulations on your tremendous success. We are all excited for what the future holds for each one of you. My question is around some of the things that you're doing to give back to the community. You have experienced a level of success that most people don't at your age. What are you doing, and what is your principles around giving back to the community and helping to bring others up along the way?
I think it's very important. So for us, for me personally, it's definitely one of my primary goals, and actually that's why we're starting to develop a program within our company for our delivery drivers to actually create career paths for them, and to, if you're an assistant, essentially that means you don't have a driver's license, we're helping you get a driver's license so you can move up the career ladder. And we've hired the first delivery driver we have is now our head of operations. So really creating a career path and providing the education, providing the mentorship so that they can achieve whatever their goals are. And for me, it's very important. For our business, it's very important. And also, it helps us as well as a business.
I guess I'm not directly involved, but the only way that I guess I help is that I have friends who have fundraisers or put up fundraisers that support, let's say, breast cancer, and I'll just be a sponsor for that, right? I'll sponsor the wine, I'll sponsor the champagne, and that's, I guess, my direct way of giving back to the community.
So I think that's a really good question, because a lot of young professionals actually look for companies that have philanthropy, and they are interested in giving back, and they want to join a culture with a company that's actually giving back. So that's really a great question, and companies should consider having that a part of their business model as well.
And so you mentioned like company culture. That's something that millennials really care about, right? We want to be a part of an organization that's thinking about diversity and inclusion, thinking about giving back, that people want to be a part of something. So I think that to my earlier point of like, it's competitive advantage, because you will be able to attract the best talent if you're thinking about the culture you're creating. So on the community side, I work in the government, but I think a lot of the things that excite me is thinking about how we're teaching the community. I think we need to teach people how to be problem solvers and entrepreneurs, as opposed to you get trained to do this very specific job. And so I think that's something that I would love to, with this panel, to think about how we can do that together.
Definitely.
Yeah, and also I think for minority international students, and we're using, for One to World, we offer different programs and workshops, and it's our way to educate our minority groups and how they can advance their career paths in the Western culture, helping them to build skills to fit in the how to network in the American culture, right? It's all different from where they're coming from. For example, I remember my Chinese resume has my gender, my headshot, if I'm married or not. Those are we definitely not doing here. So it's using whatever the resource you have to educating those international, or not just for students, even international employees, and helping them to fit in the American culture better, and helping them build networks and building connections. And for your own perspective, it's important you have this committed yourself, putting your energy and the time to helping them, and even small program you could do during the weekend, just go volunteer in some programs, something small but would have a huge impact.
And I would say that conversation should be an exchange. I think American culture is changing. I don't know if you've looked at the news lately, but our president is changing what it means in a lot of ways to be an American, at least from my perspective. So
yeah.
We live in a global economy. How do we? You mentioned learning, how to be an American culture. I think we could learn a lot from like international culture.
Exactly.
How to like open up that dialogue.
Definitely, and that's definitely enrich the global perspectives. And also, I think it's not just for international students. For people living in the same country, you relocate from the West Coast to the East Coast, and New York is so special. We have a New York culture here too, and people having their own culture shock just to start new life in New York, right? That's Americans going same adjusting process as well. That I'm sure there are some Asian Americans having a hard time to adjust themselves here, and that's some way we international students who live here long enough can give in back. Yeah.
We have about 5 minutes left, so any other questions? Yes.
Good afternoon. Eddie Nicastro with Brooklyn Nets and Barclays Center. Just before you were talking about the importance of mentors, and I'm in professional sports business, and sports and business can be very relatable. So this question is actually directed at you, Ace. How did playing for you mentioned something before about recruiting and how Coach Calhoun recruited, it didn't really matter where. So how did playing for an inclusive coach like Jim Calhoun, help prepare you to be a great teammate and advocate for inclusion now in your professional career?
I think now, even at Citizens Bank or even at the restaurants, you know, we welcome diversity, and we work on everyone's strengths. And I think what Coach Calhoun really instilled in us was that, look, everybody has weaknesses, but if we all focus on everyone's strengths instead of just looking at their weaknesses, then as a collaborative team, we can actually have, you know, I guess our competitive edge, right? So what Coach really instilled back then was the ability to keep everyone accountable. So if anybody was late to practice, everybody would run suicides, right? There's no exception to the team. And I think inclusion, you know, it starts from the top. So I think every company, every organization, if you really want to be successful, if you live in anywhere besides, you know, New York City is such a huge melting pot that, you know, being an American, you know, I look at myself and yes, I may not fit the typical American mold, but I consider myself 100% American, right? And I think a lot of companies should really instill the inclusion and diversity aspect of the business, just because, you know, consumers in today's marketplace just from all over. So, one last question for the panel. And I will give Noel's number to everyone here, so in case you want to live his lifestyle, you can definitely give him a call. All right, guys, I guess that's it.
Thank you.